Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complex sources and pull out the key insights for you. Today we're jumping into something really profound. We're looking at Australian Aboriginal spirituality, their cosmology, their legal systems. This stretches back thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years, right into the Paleolithic.
It really does, and I think the biggest hurdle for anyone trying to understand this, for you listening, is grappling with the concept of time and place that's it's fundamentally different from the Western idea of linear history.
Right, that straight line from past to present to future.
Exactly. You almost have to set that aside. We need to try and grasp a reality that, as one anthropologist famously put it, was and is everywhen.
Everywhen. Okay, that word feels important. It sounds like that's the key to unlocking this whole thing.
It absolutely is. And our mission today isn't just to talk about old myths. We want to get across how this worldview is, it's a total reality. It's the law, it's a map, it's identity, all woven together.
And the really surprising part, the insight we're aiming for, is how these incredibly ancient spiritual ideas are still operating today, like as actual legal title deeds to land, and even as sophisticated guides to ecology.
That's the goal. So to start, we have to define the absolute core concept, and that's the dreaming, or sometimes called Dreamtime.
Okay, the dreaming. I think most people have heard the term, but maybe misunderstand it.
Very likely. It's the foundational, sacred era of creation in Aboriginal culture. It's when the ancestral spirit beings moved across a sort of featureless land and formed the world as we know it. And this is crucial, we absolutely have to avoid that Western trap of thinking Dreamtime means, some fairy tale past that's over and done with, or something unreal, like a dream.
Yeah, the word time in Dreamtime is probably misleading. It makes it sound like an epoch like the Jurassic period or something that finished ages ago. That kind of diminishes it, doesn't it?
It massively diminishes it. For many, probably most Aboriginal communities, it's not ancient history at all. It's an eternal continuum. It merges past, present, and future. That creative power is always present, always active in the land and the people.
Always active.
Yes. The anthropologist W.E.H. Stanner, who worked with the Murrumbidgee people, really nailed it. He said the dreaming isn't fixed in time, like on a timeline. It's fixed in a bigger sense. It was and is everywhen.
Everywhen, I like that. It's not then, it's always. So if the actions of these creation beings are somehow still happening or still present, what does that actually mean for how people live their lives?
It means everything. It means the dreaming established the absolute law, with a capital L.
The law, not just rules, but something bigger.
Much bigger. This law covers everything. Moral codes, how society should be structured, rules for managing land and resources, kinship systems, ceremonies, the whole moral order. The dreaming stories aren't just stories. They are the blueprint for life.
So following the dreaming, that is following the law.
Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Because that law isn't static. It's constantly renewed by the presence of the ancestors in the land. That's why many communities just refer to their whole religious and social system simply as the law. It's this ongoing living covenant established in the dreaming.
Okay, let's dig into that blueprint then, starting with the physical world. Because you're saying the land itself isn't just dirt and rocks.
Right.
It's a record book.
That's a great way to put it. It's a living, visible record of creation. Think about those ancestral beings moving across the land during that everywhen creation time. Their journeys, their actions, sleeping, fighting, hunting, dancing, singing, that's what shaped the world.
So they didn't just make the mountains and rivers. They are the mountains and rivers, in a way.
In a very real sense, yes. They brought into existence every single natural feature you can see, the mountains, the rivers, the water holes, specific rock formations. And not just the landforms, but also the plants, the animals, and the different human groups, the clans, and their connection to specific areas.
So when I look at a cliff face and see geology, erosion, an initiated Aboriginal person sees something else.
They see the geology too, of course, but they also see a specific moment from a creation story, literally solidified in that rock. They see where an ancestor rested or fought or transformed.
Wow, so the land is just saturated with meaning.
Completely. Every waterhole isn't just a place to get water, it's linked to an event in an ancestor's journey. The ancestor's spiritual essence is still there, making that site sacred.
So knowing the country isn't just about navigation.
No, it's about knowing the creation story of that specific piece of land, intimately. Knowing the story tells you about the resources, the boundaries, the dangers, the sacred obligations. It provides what Stanner called an ordered sense of reality, binding people, land, resources, history, everything into one interconnected system.
That sounds like an incredible amount of information to manage, especially orally. If the land is like a sacred text, there must be rules about who gets to read what parts.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the idea of layered knowledge and custodianship. This isn't information that's just freely available to everyone.
Why the secrecy or the layers?
It's vital for preservation. It ensures the sacred lore isn't diluted, misused, or disrespected. Think of it in tiers.
Okay.
Tier 1 is what you might call outer knowledge. These are the stories, the songs, the moral lessons that are shared more openly. Kids learn them, the uninitiated hear them, maybe respectful visitors are told parts. They're the surface narrative.
They give you the gist, the basic moral, but maybe not the operational details.
Exactly. But the inside knowledge, that's the real depth. This includes the deeper sacred meanings behind the stories, the specific ritual chants, the complex ceremonial patterns, the precise details of the ancestors' journey, and why certain things happen.
And that's not just given out.
Definitely not. It's earned over decades, through initiation, through demonstrating responsibility, trustworthiness, through intense learning with the elders.
Can you give an example? How might a story change between the layers?
Okay, imagine a simple story, the outer knowledge. A hunter breaks the law, hunts the wrong animal at a sacred waterhole, and a spirit punishes him. Simple moral. Follow the rules.
Got it.
The inside knowledge of that same story, revealed only to initiated people at the right time, might include the specific ritual needed to approach that waterhole safely, which family group has the ancestral right to hunt that particular animal there, maybe even coded information about seasonal changes or water levels hidden in the narrative. It becomes a practical guide to law and ecology.
Wow. So you really have to prove yourself worthy over a long time.
You do. A person might not learn the most sacred levels of lore connected to their clan's dreaming until they're quite mature. And only then, if they're seen as a responsible custodian, can they become a lawman, an elder, an honored trustee for those traditions. It's a system built for long-term integrity.
Okay, so let's meet some of these ancestral architects, the creation beings themselves. They're the main characters in the dreaming stories, right? Often animals.
Yes, they often appear in animal form or can shift between human and animal. Think zoomorphic. And while every single group has its own specific heroes tied to their particular country, like Bunjil Eaglehawk, who's very important in Victoria, some figures are known across vast stretches of the continent.
And the most famous is probably the rainbow serpent.
Unquestionably, the rainbow serpent is one of the most widespread and powerful ancestral beings right across Australia, usually imagined as this huge, often iridescent snake.
And connected to water.
Inextricably linked to waterholes, rivers, rain, monsoon seasons, fertility, life itself, really.
And its role in shaping the land is very direct in the stories.
Very direct. In the dreaming, the land was initially flat, featureless. The rainbow serpent moved across it, and its massive winding body literally carved out the rivers and gorges, pushed up mountains, created the waterholes where it rested. So it's seen as this ultimate life giver, the source of water, guardian of sacred springs. Huge role in fertility ceremonies, too, especially up in Arnhem Land.
But it's not just a benevolent creator figure, is it? There's a darker side, a law-giving side.
Oh, absolutely. A terrifying duality. It gives life, but it's also a supreme lawgiver and enforcer. If people break the law, disrespect sacred sites, ignore protocols, maybe pollute a water source, the serpent's wrath is unleashed.
How does that manifest?
Often as natural disasters, devastating floods, cyclones, intense thunderstorms. Its anger is the uncontrolled power of nature. And in some of the deeper lore, the justice is very direct, very physical.
Like what?
Some traditions say the serpent will actually swallow transgressors whole. Then later it vomits out their bones, and those bones turn to stone, becoming part of the landscape. A permanent, chilling warning right there at the site. Don't mess with the law here.
That's incredibly vivid. And you mentioned we can see evidence of this belief going way back.
Yes, the depictions of the rainbow serpent in rock art sites go back thousands of years, maybe 6,000 years or more in some places like Arnhem Land. It shows the incredible antiquity and continuity of reverence for this powerful figure.
Amazing continuity. Okay, moving from the serpent, let's go southeast. You mentioned Byam.
Yes, Byam. Particularly revered in southeastern Australia by big groups like the Wiradjuri and Gamilaroi. He's often seen as a skyfather figure, a supreme creator being.
What was his specific role in setting up the law?
The stories tell of Byam coming down from the sky world during the dreaming, sometimes with specific helpers or wives. His main job was to shape the land further, create the rivers, the forests, the animals, and, critically, to give the people their law. He established the different clans, assigned them their territories, their totems, their social structures.
So he laid down the societal blueprint.
Exactly. Elders would say Byami created them and gave them the country, defining their very existence and their responsibilities. He's seen as a protector and the ultimate source of the law, heavily invoked in big initiation ceremonies like the Bora. And after his work was done, he returned to the sky, where he continues to watch over people, making sure the law is upheld.
And who enforces that law on the ground, especially during those intense ceremonies? You mentioned someone associated with BAM.
That would be Duramulan, often described as Byami's son, or maybe a close associate, sometimes linked to the moon, sometimes depicted strangely, maybe as a one-legged figure. His key role is law enforcer, pure and simple, especially during male initiation.
Right, the Bora ceremonies you mentioned.
Yeah.
And he has a very specific sound associated with it.
He does. It's the sound of the bull roarer. This is a specially shaped, flat piece of wood, often sacred, tied to a long cord. When you whirl it around your head really fast, it makes this incredibly deep, vibrating, roaring sound. It's intimidating.
And how is that used in initiation?
During the initiation rites, the novices, the young men, are often taken away, secluded in the bush for intensive teaching by the elders. It can be a tough, frightening experience. The elders will sound the bull roarer, often hidden from view. They tell the novices, that's the voice of Duramulan. He's here in the forest, watching you, listening, judging your courage, making sure you learn the law properly.
Wow, talk about a powerful psychological tool.
Exactly. It instantly instills this deep respect, maybe even fear, for the law and for the authority of the elders who are channeling that ancestral power. It makes the law feel incredibly real and present.
Okay, so the law comes from the ancestors like Bimo. It's enforced by figures like Duramulan and the Rainbow Serpent, and their actions are literally written into the land. How do people navigate this landscape, this lawscape? That's where songlines come in, right?
Precisely. Songlines, or sometimes called dreaming tracks, are absolutely fundamental. They are essentially the paths that the Dreamtime ancestors traveled across the land during that creation period.
The actual routes they walk.
The actual routes. As they moved, they did things. They sang, they danced, they fought, they created landmarks, they interacted with other ancestors. The songline is the narrative of that journey, encoded in a sequence of songs, stories, sometimes dances and ceremonies.
So it's a story, a map, and a song, all in one.
Yes. They crisscross the entire continent, connecting thousands upon thousands of sacred sites. It's like this vast, invisible spiritual network laid over the physical land. Each song in the sequence, each verse, often corresponds to a specific place along the track and recounts what the ancestor did there.
It sounds like a kind of information technology, really.
It is a very sophisticated one. These aren't just myths, they're packed with information. As one expert put it, they're epic creation songs. They tell the story of the creation of the land, provide maps for the country, and hand down law. They encode geography, resource locations, travel routes, laws, history, genealogy, everything.
Which means actually traveling the land becomes, what, like reading the story?
Yeah.
Walking the narrative.
That's a perfect way to describe it. When you travel along a songline, you're literally walking through the story. Every significant feature, a gorge, a waterhole, a particular tree, a rock formation. It's not just a place, it's a chapter. It might be named Where the Emu Ancestor Rested or Kangaroo Man's Leap Across the Creek. You're constantly reminded of the ancestors and the law.
And this isn't just a historical reenactment. There's an ongoing responsibility.
A vital one. It requires maintenance. Elders have a custodial duty to periodically travel these ancestral routes. Sometimes it's a short distance, sometimes hundreds of kilometers. And at each key sacred site along the way, they perform the correct songs, the correct rituals.
Why? What does that achieve?
They say it's to keep the country alive, to awaken the spiritual essence of the place, to reaffirm the connection with the ancestors, maybe to ensure the replenishment of resources linked to that site, like animals or plants. If the songs aren't sung, if the ceremonies aren't performed, the belief is the country can become sick. The life force diminishes.
The scale of this is just staggering. You said the crisscross the continent. Are we talking about connections between really distant groups?
Absolutely. Some songlines are relatively local, but others stretch for thousands of kilometers, forming this incredible continental tapestry. The Seven Sisters songline is probably the most famous example.
The Seven Sisters, like
Yeah.
the Pleiades star cluster.
Exactly. That story, which involves sisters being pursued by a powerful ancestral man, is connected to the Pleiades, and the songline associated with it travels across huge parts of Australia, potentially starting way over in Western Australia, crossing the central deserts, through Martu country, Anangu Pichanchachari and Kanichachara lands, and maybe even extending towards the east coast.
That must require incredible cooperation between different language groups, different nations.
It does. It demands shared custodianship. Different groups are responsible for the section of the songline that passes through their traditional country. They hold the songs, the stories, the rituals for their chapter.
So what happens when the songline reaches a boundary?
There has to be protocol, often ceremony. Where the track enters a neighbor's land, the singers from the first group might effectively hand over the song. The custodians from the next group then have to pick up the tune, continuing the narrative in their language, with their specific verses relating to their sites. It's a remarkable system of cultural and political cooperation.
And you said these are practical maps too, not just mythology.
Hugely practical. That Seven Sisters story, for instance, is described as being as complex and exciting as Greek mythology, but it also functions as a navigational guide right through 3 different desert regions.
How does the story do that?
The details are woven in. The narrative might describe where the sisters stopped for water, what kind of landscape indicated a circuage, maybe a warning about a dangerous area disguised as part of the pursuer's actions. The lyrics, the rhythm, the melody, they all contain layers of meaning. So for someone initiated into that knowledge, singing the song while walking the route tells them exactly where the reliable water sources are, where to find food, how to navigate safely.
So modern highways might actually follow these ancient routes.
It's known that quite a few major roads and stock routes were essentially laid down following these pre-existing Aboriginal pathways, these songlines, because they naturally connected the most important places and resources across the landscape. It was the original sustainable infrastructure plan.
The sheer volume of knowledge, preserved perfectly for millennia without writing. It's mind-blowing. These are the ultimate oral libraries. How do they do it?
It's a multi-pronged approach, deeply layered, using multiple senses. Obviously, there's oral narration, the storytelling itself, but it's heavily reinforced through song melody and rhythm, our powerful mnemonic devices. Then there's ceremonial dance, which physically enacts the stories, and visual art plays a huge role, plus simulation during initiation rites.
And the elders are the key.
The elders are the living libraries, the repositories. They are responsible for not just knowing the information, but for teaching it, ensuring its accurate transmission, constantly refreshing the collective memory through performance.
We talked about the layered interpretation earlier, outer and inner meanings. How does that help with memory and teaching?
Well, a simple surface story about, say, 2 animal ancestors fighting near a waterhole might teach children basic social rules about conflict. But for initiates, the inner layers might encode precise kinship obligations, rules about accessing that specific waterhole, maybe even astronomical observations linked to that site. The story becomes richer and more practical as you gain more knowledge.
And the visual aids. You mentioned rock art. Are there other things?
Yes, rock art is crucial, like permanent illustrations in the Library of the Land, but there are also portable sacred objects, especially things like the Turunga from Central Australia.
Turunga. What are they?
They're usually slabs of wood or stone, often oval-shaped, intricately carved with patterns, lines, circles, spirals. These aren't just decorations, they're sacred maps.
Maps of the songlines.
Exactly. The engraved patterns represent the journeys of the ancestors, the locations of sacred sites, the events that happened along the songline. They're considered incredibly powerful, imbued with the spiritual essence of the ancestors themselves.
How do they function as memory aids?
During teaching, an elder will hold the turunga, tracing the engraved grooves and patterns with their finger while chanting the corresponding part of the songline. The tactile act of tracing reinforces the sequence of the narrative. Each line, each circle triggers the next verse of the song, the next part of the story. It's a physical link to the oral lore.
And the fact that archaeologists can date related rock art back 6,000 years or more, and elders today can still explain the meaning.
It's just incredible proof of the resilience and accuracy of this oral tradition, an unbroken chain of knowledge transmission over unimaginable timescales.
That unbroken chain depends on constantly bringing the dreaming into the present. Which brings us to ritual, ceremony, and initiation. These aren't just cultural performances. They're essential for the whole system to work.
They are the absolute lifeblood. Ritual is how the sacred knowledge isn't just stored, but is actively lived, performed, taught, and kept potent. Every ceremony, big or small, public or secret, connects people directly back to the ancestors, back to the dreaming, back to the land. It reaffirms that everywhen reality.
Can you describe corroborees? People might have an image of them, but maybe not the deeper meaning.
Right. Corroborees are often large, sometimes public gatherings, though many have very sacred private components too. They involve intense music singing, clapping sticks, maybe didgeridoo intricate dances, and often elaborate body painting with ochre, designs which themselves carry a specific dreaming significance.
So it's more than entertainment?
Oh, much more. They are sacred acts. Dancers often imitate the movements and actions of the Dreamtime ancestors relevant to that ceremony. It's about making the dreaming present right now, invoking the power and presence of the ancestors, and ensuring the continuity of the law.
And this connects to a very practical side too, things like increased rights.
Yes, this is a perfect example of spirituality having direct, practical, ecological consequences. Increased rites are specific ceremonies designed to ritually ensure the abundance of particular animals or plants.
How does that work?
A group might hold a ceremony focused on, say, the kangaroo dreaming or the yam dreaming. They'll perform the songs, the dances, visit the sites associated with that ancestor. The belief is that this ritual action directly stimulates the life force of that species, ensuring it continues to flourish. It reflects this deep understanding that humans have a responsibility, through ritual, to actively maintain the world, to uphold their end of the creation covenant. It's applied ecology through ceremony.
Then there are the really profound transformations of rites of passage, especially initiation.
Initiation ceremonies, known by different names like Bora or Burbung in different areas, are incredibly significant. They mark the transition from youth to adulthood, but more importantly, they induct young people into deeper levels of the law and sacred knowledge.
These aren't quick ceremonies.
No, they can be incredibly elaborate, often lasting for days, even weeks. They typically involve a period of seclusion, usually out in the bush, away from the main camp. During this time, the initiates undergo intensive tutoring from the elders. They learn sacred songs, stories, laws, their specific responsibilities within the kinship system, how to read the land. It's a total immersion.
And often involve physical ordeals.
Yes, quite often. These aren't punishments, but tests of courage, commitment, and readiness to bear the responsibilities of adulthood and sacred knowledge. Things like ritual circumcision, scarification patterns cut into the skin, or sometimes the removal of a tooth. The Eora people around Sydney, for instance, traditionally knocked out a front tooth during male initiation. These markings become lifelong symbols of initiated status.
And importantly, this isn't just for boys.
Absolutely not. That's a common misconception. There's often a parallel, equally important system for girls. Senior law women guide young women through their own rites of passage.
What do they focus on?
Typically, women's law, knowledge related to fertility, childbirth, healing, bush medicines, specific women's dreaming stories and ceremonies, like the Yawuyu or Awalai ceremonies in Central Australia. These are powerful, women-only domains that affirm female knowledge and authority, often passed down matrilineally.
So it's a dual structure.
Often, yes. Both men and women have their distinct, complementary spheres of knowledge and ritual responsibility. It ensures everyone is educated appropriately for their roles, and crucially, it often means that no single group holds all the knowledge needed to keep the whole system running. There's an interdependence built into the structure of knowledge itself.
This incredible complexity, this whole worldview, it really threw early Western scholars, didn't it? Which leads us to the anthropologist W.E.H. Stanner again, and his critique of some foundational ideas.
Yes, Stanner's work, especially his book on Aboriginal religion, was groundbreaking because he challenged the prevailing academic views head-on. Specifically, he took issue with the highly influential sociologist Emil Durkheim,
Who, ironically, based a lot of his theories about religion on reports about Aboriginal Australia.
Exactly. Durkheim, in his famous work The Elementary Forms of the Religious Life, used Aboriginal societies as his primary example to argue that religion was essentially just a reflection of society itself. He called it a social epiphenomenon.
Meaning religion is just a byproduct of social structures.
Pretty much. For Durkheim, the gods, the rituals, they were all symbolic representations of the clan, the community. If society changed, religion would just change along with it. He saw society as the primary reality and religion as secondary.
And Stanner, from his deep fieldwork, said, no, that doesn't fit what I'm seeing.
Fundamentally, no. Stanner argued that you simply couldn't understand Aboriginal life using Durkheim's neat division between the sacred and the profane. He found the spiritual life was far too interwoven with everything else. He insisted that Aboriginal religion had to be studied in its own right, not just as a mirror of social structure, but as a vibrant celebration of values, a profound ontology of life, a system for understanding the very nature of being.
He felt Durkheim was kind of forcing the data into his theory.
Yes, he accused Durkheim of a sociocentric fixation that missed the lived reality, the passion, the commitment, the deep philosophical engagement with existence that he saw among the Murrumbidgee and other groups. It wasn't just about social cohesion, it was about seeking meaning, seeking what Stanner called abundant life.
Which leads to that incredibly evocative phrase Stanner used to summarize the Murrumbidgee worldview.
Ah, yes, the famous quote, "Life is a joyful thing with maggots at the center."
It's such a startling image. What does it capture?
It captures that profound honesty, I think. It acknowledges the joy, the power, the beauty, the enduring nature of the dreaming, the joyful thing, but it simultaneously stares unflinchingly at the harsh realities of life, suffering, decay, death, transience, the maggots at the center.
So it's not escapism.
Hmm.
It's facing reality within the eternal framework.
Exactly. It's a worldview, a law, built on a complex, gritty acceptance of the fullness of existence, the good and the bad, all held within the everywhen of the dreaming. It's not looking for a simple utopia, it's dealing with life as it is, maggots and all.
Okay, so maintaining this incredibly complex system, this fusion of cosmology, law, ecology, history over millennia, relies utterly on the knowledge keepers, the elders.
They are absolutely crucial, the living libraries, the guardians. And we need to be clear, an elder isn't just someone who's old. It's a status earned through deep understanding of the dreaming, a lifetime of living by the law, and gaining the respect and authority to guide the community. They hold, as someone put it, the keys that underpin everything in traditional life.
They're the ultimate authority on law and tradition.
Yes, they interpret the dreaming stories, they make decisions about ceremonies, they protect sacred sites, they manage disputes, they guide the education of the young. Their authority rests on that deep knowledge and moral standing. And they operate very carefully by that principle of right time, right place, right people.
Meaning knowledge is shared very selectively.
Very selectively. Sacred knowledge isn't broadcast, it's entrusted. The elders decide who is ready, who is worthy, when and where it's appropriate to share specific levels of information. This careful custodianship is how the integrity of the law has been maintained for so long.
But this reliance on human memory carries a huge risk, doesn't it?
A profound risk. The danger of loss is immense.
What happens when an elder passes away?
If an elder dies before they've been able to pass on specific, perhaps rare knowledge, a particular songline, a dialect of a language, the intricate details of a ceremony tied to a certain place, that knowledge can be lost forever. It's often described with the stark phrase, "a library burns." It's not just personal knowledge. It's a piece of the cultural, spiritual, and legal heritage that's gone. And the connection to that aspect of the dreaming, that piece of country, is weakened.
And this is where this ancient spiritual system collides dramatically with modern Western law. Suddenly, this orally transmitted knowledge songs, ceremonies had to be presented as evidence in court.
Yes, particularly with the advent of land rights legislation, like the Aboriginal Land Rights Act in 1976, and then critically, the Native Title Act in 1993 following the Mabo decision. This forced the Western legal system to grapple with Aboriginal ways of owning and proving connection to land.
So how did songs and ceremonies become legal proof?
The argument, which eventually gained traction in the courts, was that these land-based songs and ceremonies, originating from the ancestral beings in the dreaming, are passed down through generations specifically to maintain connection to and responsibility for particular areas of land. They function as the traditional equivalent of title deeds.
So knowledge of the song is proof of ownership.
Knowledge and the right to perform the ceremony associated with that land, it demonstrates continuous connection and responsibility. Justice Gray, in one case, put it very clearly. Aboriginal culture is reflected in ceremonies. Often, ceremony, song, dance, and design are the very title deeds to land.
That's a huge conceptual leap for Western law. Let's look at some of the cases mentioned in the sources to see how this played out. The Mabo case is the big one.
Mabo was foundational. While the case itself, concerning Eddie Mabo and the Miriam people of the Torres Strait, initially faced arguments about whether songs and dances were legally relevant, the High Court's final decision was monumental. It overturned terra nullius and recognized that native title existed based on the ongoing observance of traditional laws and customs, which implicitly includes the performance and transmission of song and ceremony as evidence of that continuity.
So Mabo opened the door. What about the Akiba claim, also in the Torres Strait? That seems more specific about performance.
Yes, Akiba was really significant for demonstrating connection to sea country. The claimants literally performed songs and dances for the judge, Justice Finn, on various islands. The key was showing that the content and performance style of these songs were inherently maritime. They contained detailed knowledge about marine environments, navigation, tides, resources. It successfully proved their continuous connection not just to islands, but to the surrounding sea, securing native title rights over those waters.
But it wasn't always straightforward. The Droz dispute highlighted the clash between Western ideas of time and Aboriginal connection.
That case really exposed the tension. The claimants, the DeRose Hill group, performed the specific songs and ceremonies for their claimed area right there for the judge. But Justice O'Loughlin initially rejected their claim. Why? Because they hadn't physically lived on the station continuously for about 20 years. He argued they'd therefore lost their spiritual connection.
So he prioritized continuous physical presence over demonstrated knowledge of the law.
Exactly. He applied a Western linear concept of occupation and abandonment. The claimants argued, we hold the law, we sing the songs, we know the sites, our connection is through the dreaming, which is everywhere. It doesn't break just because we were physically elsewhere for a time.
And that initial ruling was overturned.
Thankfully, yes, on appeal. The appeal court had a better grasp of the concept, recognizing that connection in Aboriginal law is maintained through knowledge, responsibility, and the capacity to perform the law, not solely through uninterrupted physical presence. It showed the legal system slowly, painfully, starting to adapt to a different understanding of time and connection.
And you mentioned that the performances in court often had another dimension.
Yes, what was often really powerful was seeing young people participating in these performances alongside their elders, right there in a courtroom or during a site visit for the judge. It wasn't just presenting evidence, it was a living demonstration of intergenerational knowledge transfer, a public reaffirmation of the law's continuity while simultaneously making a legal claim.
Finally, there was a fascinating point about songlines dictating language itself.
Yes, the sources mention the Wanji or Dingari tradition from the Kimberley region. Their songline explicitly states that as the ancestor travels, they speak Yawuru language in Yawuru country, Kurajari language in Kurajari country, and Mangala language in Mangala country.
So the language belongs to the place, as defined by the ancestor's journey.
Precisely. The songline acts like a constitutional document, defining not just the route and the sacred sites, but the laws, the resources, the social groups, and even the correct language for each section of country. It's this incredibly integrated system, honed over maybe 60,000 years, linking people, place, law, and language.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground today. We started with the mind-bending concept of the everywhen, the eternal dreaming. We saw how creation beings like the rainbow serpent and Biome didn't just shape the land, but imbued it with law. We followed the songlines, these incredible spiritual maps and oral libraries, and we saw how the elders act as custodians, preserving this knowledge and bringing it into the modern legal world.
It really is a breathtakingly holistic system. Cosmology, law, geography, ecology, social structure, it's all seamlessly integrated. That quote you mentioned earlier really sums it up. The stories are in the land, and the people are the voice of the land. The people, through ceremony and custodianship, keep that eternal landscape alive and speaking.
And understanding this, as Danner argued, forces us to reconsider simplistic Western ideas about primitive religion or linear progress. This is sophisticated, resilient, practical knowledge. Those songlines weren't just myths, they were survival guides, ecological manuals.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to chew on after this. If these songlines encode millennia of detailed, practical knowledge about the Australian landscape, water sources, navigation, resource management, maybe even climate patterns woven into sacred narratives, and if, as we heard, some of our modern highways literally follow the paths laid down by these ancient songlines, consider this. What crucial, enduring truths about living sustainably on this continent might be held within the parts of those songs, those narratives, that have been irrevocably lost due to colonization, due to the disruption of that oral transmission, due to libraries burning when elders passed without successors? What vital ecological or cultural memory specific to place has vanished forever, and what does that loss mean for our collective ability to understand and care for this continent